Alright guys, to go along with the video I made of the Snare Etude, I thought I'd share some helpful tips and tricks for playing it. I'll discuss some of the trouble spots and various other places in the Etude that will hopefully shed some light on how to play it as best as you can. Alright, here we go. The first tip that I have for you is regarding the sticking. I'd recommend using the straight sticking policy, which is when you use your right hand for any notes that fall on the beats and the ands, and your left hand for any notes that fall on the e's and the uhs. This will help you to get a consistent sound and will also eliminate the question as to which hand do I use. You have a rule to follow. That policy will make it very clear when to use your right hand and when to use your left hand. So I'd recommend using straight sticking for the entire etude. In the opening adagio section, be sure that you open strong. Forte is the loudest dynamic that you have in the etude, and that's also the dynamic that you're going to start at. So make sure that you're starting really strong. You don't want to have a wimpy start. Start strong in forte, and you do have a decrescendo coming right out of that forte. And as you decrescendo, be sure that you move closer to the rim. You can probably see in the video how during the louder parts, I'm more towards the center, playing more towards the center, and during the quiet parts, I'm moving closer to the rim. So as you play that opening decrescendo, move your playing area from the center area towards the rim. As far as the roll bass for this opening section, you do have a couple of rolls. I'd recommend using sextuplets for your roll bass as opposed to 16th notes. That can get a little bit tricky using sextuplets, but you're going to get a much more even sound. Your rolls are going to sound much better at the slower speed. The sextuplets just work way better for your rolls than 16th notes do. On that last final roll that you have in measure 3, you have a fermata and the dynamic is pianissimo. So fade to nothing on that and be sure that you're right up close to that rim so you're getting as quiet as you can. Like I said, you want to fade to nothing there. During these first 3 measures, you do have several accents, so be sure you watch out for those and bring those out. As we move into the allegro section, again, you're starting at a forte, so be sure you start strong just like you did at the beginning of the adagio section. As I said earlier, be sure to follow the straight sticking policy. I've even written in the sticking on this first line in the allegro section, so you have an example of how the straight sticking policy works. Follow that. It'll be a lifesaver, trust me. Since we've increased our speed during this allegro section, we're going to move from the sextuplet roll bass that we used in the adagio section to a 16th note roll bass. And again, you have a crescendo right at the beginning of this section, and it's much longer. You spread it over 2 measures, and as you're playing that decrescendo, just like in the adagio section, move towards the rim. So when you get to that piano in measure 6, that you're right up on the rim. In measure 7, you have a roll that's 2 8th notes tied together, but then the roll does not tie to the 8th note that comes in on the and of 2. So because it's not tied to that last 8th note, you want there to be a break between the roll and the and of 2. Since you're using 16th notes as your roll bass, your roll should end on the 4th stroke of your roll, which is going to be the E of beat 2. So just, again, be sure you're not carrying your roll all the way to the end of beat 2. There should be a break there. In measures 8 and 9, you have a lot of accents. Really, in the whole thing, there are accents all over the place. So just keep your eye out for those. Make sure you're bringing those out. That's an easy thing to do, and it's something the judges will be listening for. So bring out those accents. In measure 10, you start mezzo piano. You want to be close to the rim, but not right on top of it. This isn't going to be your softest dynamic. But you do have some accents here in this section, the mezzo piano section. But in measure 11, when you have the flam on beat 1, make sure you don't accent the flam. It's really easy to accent a flam just naturally, so you want to fight that urge to accent that flam and make sure that it is even with all the rest of the 8th notes and 16th notes in that passage. You have a couple sticking options for beats 2 and 3 of measure 13, With those triplets, you can do either right, left, right, left, right, left, like a flam accent, or you can do right, left, right, right, left, right. I opted for the right, left, right, right, left, right, but it's totally your call. Also in measure 13, you have that final flam on beat 4. That's the loudest point in the etude. You're coming out of a forte section and crescendoing. So you're crescendoing to that flam on beat 4 and it has an accent on it. So, I mean, we're talking about fortissimo plus dynamic here. It's the loudest point you have in the etude, so be sure you really bring that out. Because you drop to a piano in measure 14, it's going to be really easy to lose momentum with that crescendo in measure 13, but you don't want to do that. Don't lose that momentum going into 14. Crescendo all the way through 13 and end with a bang on beat 4 with that flam. Just because it's loud, though, don't sacrifice your technique. You still want to make sure you're using a nice rebound stroke on these loud sections. Like I mentioned a second ago, measure 14 immediately drops down to piano. So you want to make sure that there's no delay, because you're coming from your loudest point to just about your softest point here in 14. It's going to be easy for those first couple of hits in measure 14 to be maybe more like mezzo piano or mezzo forte, but you don't want that. You want to make sure you're getting right down to piano immediately. You have a crescendo and decrescendo in measure 15, then by measure 16, you're back down to that piano level. Staying at the piano level in measure 17, make sure you don't crescendo that or change dynamics there. Stay at that soft piano close to the rim. But then on beat 4 of measure 17, you're suddenly forte. There's no crescendo into it. It is very sudden, and you're going to stay at that forte for beat 4 and then the first hit of measure 18 on beat 1. But watch out, because on the end of 1, you have to suddenly drop back down to piano. It's really easy to miss that or have your first hit on the end of 1 in measure 18 to be too loud. You've got very sudden changes here, and you want those distinctions to be clear. From piano to forte, back to piano with no crescendos or decrescendos. All very sudden. All right, that's all I've got. I hope all of this has been helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment below or reach out to me via email. My website and everything is in the comments below. You can find me there and reach out if you have any questions about anything. Happy practicing and good luck.